All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast and welcome back to this another summer series episode, Ben. And we are talking to a guest today, a long-term TPC listener who has the pressure to be that parent, that perfect parent, and where the finances collide. And also we go deep on You're Not Broken, and we unpack that. What else do we cover?
Well, Bryce, this is a story around the emotional pressure behind financial freedom and living in the now versus trying to plan for the future. So it's a great episode because we get to the emotional side of money.
Emotional side of money, folks. We need to know all about this. Let's rip into the show.
Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance, and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast. And Ben, welcome back to you. We are well and truly in the lane of summer series. How have you been, mate?
Yeah, I've been well. Obviously, there's a lot going on this time of the year. There's lots of activities, both during the day and in the evening. It does feel like you want to get to Christmas, doesn't it? You know, in terms of to just slow down a little bit. But it is the festive season, Bryce, so let's remain festive.
Let's remain festive. I like the attitude, Ben. But look, we've got an amazing interview with our guest today. And you and I spent some time with this particular guest earlier in the year when we went to Bali as part of the charity tour we did. So Kat's been generous enough to join us on the tour. We interviewed her on the podcast, part of the Q&A that we did at the time. And now here she is. Come and joined us again. And the good news about that, with that little bit of familiarity, we got to go pretty deep here, which was, I think, will be of enormous benefit to our audience, Ben. So you and I had a really great chat, Ben, so I reckon we should cut to the interview that we recently had with Kat Smith. All right, Ben, we've got another very special guest on this episode of the Summer Series. We are talking to TPC listener. Her name is Katrina, or as we like to call her, Kat Smith. Welcome to the Property Couch, Kat.
Thank you. Thanks, Bryce. Thanks, Ben, for having me. Super excited.
We're excited to chat with you. So, but this is not your first time on the podcast. You actually joined us on the trip to Bali back in May. You and your husband Rhys got big hearts, wanted to help the wonderful people of Banyuwangi in Java, and you've kindly agreed to share your story with us on Summer Series for the benefit of the community. So what made you want to come back for a second round?
It's, as you've said a lot, it's so hard to find people, the right people that you can trust because of all the spruikers. And it's not regulated. And I work for a bank, so I see a lot of the compliance and things around that regulation, and it's just not there. So when mums and dads who are just trying to be financially stable for when they retire, are just trying to do the right thing, it's really difficult to navigate that. And the amount of research I put into it, amount of listening to podcast after podcast and still finding the challenges around, in particular, buyers agents and things like that, that it almost deterred me, let alone poor Rhys, who was just, being dragged along for the journey. So, and the thing is, we're quite lucky that we made smaller mistakes, but it can really cripple you. If you make one of those big mistakes, it can set you back such a long time.
It's actually really good feedback that you get because, Ben and I think that, when the words come out of our mouth, we hope that they land, and clearly they land through people's filters. But there is a theme, Ben, that we've been getting on the Summer Series, that people are getting this content, but still, when it comes time to step up to the plate and actually make a decision, some of the preparation and the wobbliness kicks in because of some of the tactics that a lot of people tend to employ to get people into the game.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's important to understand that these decisions can be life-changing in both directions. No investing doesn't carry no risk. All investment carries risk. And so I'm excited about unpacking that with Kat in terms of what that looks like. But Kat, we're just going to learn a little bit more about you from a money story point of view and tell us, just paint a picture in terms of what money was like growing up for you in the household. So where did you grow up? What was it like? And, and how has that formed some of your money beliefs and money behaviours?
Well, grew up in a little town called Macksville on the mid-north coast. My parents, they were really, really good with money. And being in a smaller town, you didn't need much. My parents bought a piece of land in Macksville for $1,500, and then they sold it 7 years later for $20,000, and that was without any improvements. And then from there, they've almost always had a property. And what they said, so I put up my sister and I, they always said, just save your money, keep put in the bank, don't waste it, because once you spend it, it's gone. And they both worked at Midco. It was like a meat factory. They both worked really, really hard. So mum was on night shift, dad was day shift. And then when that closed down, I saw them pivot really quickly. So they're always really hard workers, always able to get a job. And they didn't waste money. They always just bought what they needed. But in saying that, we always had everything we needed. If we wanted something big, we got it for Christmas. If we needed clothes, they would go and buy it for us. So no pocket money or anything like that, but we never went without. But they were really big on instilling in us that, save your money.
And Kat, in a small town like you're living in, did you feel like you were missing out in terms of if you're watching certain types of shows or, the sort of lifestyle in a city location compared to a country location? Did you get a sense that you were missing out? Because one of the great things about regional towns is connection, people, community, and those types of things. So there's always potentially something going on, but it's not as fancy. You don't get the choice of, are we eating Thai, Vietnamese, Chinese, Indian this week or this night? Do you know what I mean? Like, did you get a sense of that story for yourself in terms of being in a small community, or did you love it and you weren't aware of it at the time?
Funny you say that, because I don't even recall being aware of it. And if you wanted to go out for dinner, there was Macksville Chinese restaurant, which is still there and it's still amazing. Or there was a newly open pasta, I don't even think it was called Italian. And it was very rare. And then we lived on a farm for quite some time as well. Never had that issue. The one thing I do recall, and I was thinking, do I even mention this, is I had this Nike tracksuit outfit that I love so much that I wore it all through summer and could not take it off and thought I was the coolest person ever. But apart from that, and it was a big thing, Mum's like, are you sure you're going to want these tracksuit pants? Like, it's, why would you want this? But apart from that, no.
So just describe it to us. Was it one of the parachute ones with a little bit of bling in it as well, or was it sort of
It was like, the thin nylon material, and it was really puffy. I remember it was like blue and black. I had this beanie that I used to wear with it. I have a photo. I don't know what I was thinking, and I wish my mum was pressured me a bit more to say that don't look cool. But
we're going to see if we can find that photo and post it whilst you're watching this video.
Then we're at the vintage of the hypercolour t-shirt. Remember the hypercolour t-shirt?
Oh, yeah. I'm a little bit older than you too. I was Fabergé jeans and East Coast tops and, these kayak shoes.
Put your diaries in your sleeve.
Well, and we were Super Nintendo. I've still got the Super Nintendo in, I don't know if it works, but, your Donkey Kong and your Mario Kart, we're all into that. Yeah,
collector's item.
Yeah.
We could probably talk about tracks as long as it wasn't black and white. I was a bit nervous that then that would just set Ben off. But hey, look, what did having your parents are good with money, right? So sometimes when you see that, it can have different impacts on you as a child, right? Sometimes the struggle that kids see from their parents creates some resolve, and then other times when things come a little easier, it has different impacts onto people. So. I'm interested to know what was the flow-on effect. Your parents were good with money. You never went without. You had this wonderful tracksuit that you thought you were the most amazing person in the hood. Like, what did that actually mean for you, and what landed on you based on their money habits?
I didn't feel the tension that I should have felt because my parents were so good. Yep.
Didn't go without. Parents work really hard. And so you got like birthdays, Christmases, you sort of got all the things that you wanted for, but you didn't also think you're missing out in terms of a city versus country, sort of growing up experience. So you're quite complete. Your sister, tell us, I always ask about the sibling in terms of, do you have the same sort of money beliefs and money behaviours today, or are you different?
I think she's better than I am. I went to uni and I ended up with a credit card and went shopping, and and a lot of that was emotionally triggered as well.
Yep.
Which was quite interesting to unpack going through, to now. She had 2 investment properties with her partner, but I think that was probably from her partner's, influence, which they sold and then were able to get their PPR in Sydney.
Yep.
I think very similar though in terms of not really worrying about it, and it would just happen, it would just come, and we would just work hard. Yep.
Can we lean in on a little bit before we move on? You said I didn't feel the tension as much as I should have, and then Ben asked the question, were you a bit spoiled? How did that land for you? Were you?
We weren't wealthy or anything like that. The definition of rich growing up was if you had a pool or a 2-story house, and we had neither. But we did live on the river, and my mum and dad water skied. Like, we had a speedboat, and I'd go fishing with Dad all the time, which was some of the best memories. Picking a bag of fireweed at the farm when we moved out there, it was 20 cents a bag. That was we were a bit upset because it used to be $1 and then it became 20 cents. But apart from that, we didn't, it didn't feel spoiled. I don't recall that. Yeah, Bryce. And it was tough too, thinking about this conversation and trying to recall those moments, because it's what did happen in terms of money, because it is never a real focus.
Did you know early on when you were when you went to maybe the show or the local, or you went to the big country town, was that money always burning a hole in your pocket, or were you someone who thinks that they could save a little bit of it?
We went to Coffs Harbour for shopping, which was the closest, surgeries and all that. I wanted to buy everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the reason we're leaning in on this is because we obviously had a little conversation with you whilst we were over in Bali, and it was around, you were kind of in the hot seat, and for you it's the trade-off between spending for the now and investing for the future, and there's that real tension for you and Rhys. So I'm trying to see if we can draw the link and tease out the link from when you were younger, because we do set up our money habits in those early days, and I guess do you think that in terms of being able to, we talked about stacking the pain, if you remember back then. Did any of that originate in these early years where you didn't have to? Things always came to you when you were younger, and then as an adult, we have to do adulting stuff, and we have to navigate children and partners and investing and all those sorts of things. Where did some of that originate, do you think?
I don't know. But we can always save really well. So we were saving up for our wedding and saved everything we needed to. And then I got pregnant. So we're still not married yet, but we have 2 kids. And they had they had a nice pram. They had, the top of the range cot and all that kind of stuff. So we just pivoted, and then now, so I don't know the answer, Bryce. Sorry.
That's all right. No, it's all good. This is all good.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. So my question then comes in, when you went to Coffs and you had some money and you wanted to basically buy everything there, did you ever get any feedback from your mum or dad saying, do you really need that? Or, is that going to be a fad thing for you? Or it's just going to sit on the shelf and basically gather dust like the last fad? Or was there any sort of pushback or accountability feedback that you were getting in terms of those earlier years?
Yep, Mum would definitely say, "Are you sure?" Or, we've already got this, or you already have that. Do you need it?
And what was your response?
Can't remember. I'd be making it up then.
Did you put anything back? Or did you always remember getting what you wanted?
I think Mum was pretty good. I think she gave us what we wanted. The trips to Coffs Harbour were very special. Like, it wasn't like it happened all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
So there was so effectively what we're learning here is that there's no sort of limits in the sense of things were okay, things were good. You had a great upbringing and sounds like amazing parents. That sounds really good. Because then when you get into university, to your point, you grab a credit card, which is obviously the bank's money, and you've got these behaviours around wanting to spend or needing things now and not necessarily having that delayed gratification. Is that a fair assessment?
Yep, you're exactly right. And I think there's an element where Mum and Dad were really protective of us. They really worried about us. And I think leaving home when I was 17 and going to university, that was a big shock. And I think I went nuts.
Well, we spoke on the bus about that, that time, right, in terms of how you were, as 17, you're still, you're developing your adult, sort of mindset and learning and moving through those maturities. I'm trying to recall, you were renting. Were you renting on your own there, or were you renting with someone else at the time?
Yes, I think that's when we're talking about I was renting on my own. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you were having to basically make your way in, and it was Sydney, right? You moved to Sydney.
Yep.
And you got to make your way through. And so the credit card was a safety net, but it became a little bit more than a safety net. It became something that allowed you to provide for you. So you were not just existing, but you were also living in terms of having some sort of social element associated with your time in Sydney.
And not even that. This is how good my parents were, is when I first moved down to Sydney, you have your rent assistance and Centrelink, but they were also topping me up with money. So they were sending money weekly as well to make sure that we're okay. Yep. So even when I got my first job, Mum and Dad were still helping. So. Now,
the obligation, because you obviously then did really great at school and you've got yourself a great job now. And to your point, you and Rhys know how to save, right? You can do both things really well when you put your mind to it. And, I'm looking at your bookcase behind, and I know we've talked about, you're a student of life and you love reading as part of that. So how do you, when you are sort of on a spending spree and then you're thinking about your future, how do you work through that logically? What's the sort of, because they're two sort of different sort of dichotomies that are, and, things that are pushing in different directions. How do you reconcile those when you're having those conversations around money today?
I think it's accountability. I think if there's a really clear target that we're aiming for, then we can do it. It's the emotions when they get involved. That's what derails us. When we start to feel, and that's the same, like with food, with, shopping, like there's so many things. I think we as people, especially as a parent, you don't get that time out. You just, even if you're sick, you just keep going. And it's so hard. You don't like that feeling of uncomfortableness. So it's like, how do I get rid of that feeling as soon as I can? So it's either, go eat or go shopping or drinking, if you drink. So being aware of that and being okay with that feeling and going, okay, I feel like that, but I'm not going to, I'm going to still stay the course. And Rhys too, like us being on the same page is huge. And
it's critical.
Yeah, there are times he's probably a lot more, he's much got better self-control than what I have. But that helps too in saying, hey, remember, we've got our property portfolio plan. That was quite key for us to go, hey, we do have a plan to see that the future get better.
Okay, let's sort of build out this story. So you've had the your parents are amazing. They've given you really wonderful opportunities. Then you leave home, and then you embark in your first bit of independence. What does that look like? When you got your first job, independent, living out of home, and then how did you transition from developing observing what you saw with mum and dad, and then developing your own sort of money habits?
I don't even know. I think I just lived week to week and didn't really think about the future. And then I got a corporate job, and that's when I started saving money. And I thought, and that was my first interaction with people, I think, that had property and they had purchased their apartment. And so I thought, well, hang on, like I want to buy a car, or I want to buy an apartment or something to live in. But it's funny too, like I think it also depends on that economic, what part of the cycle you're in, where rents are not very expensive. Nothing's really that expensive compared to, just so you get by, nothing really challenges you. So it goes back to that tension and the friction. And I think it's when those things get hard, and maybe I'm going forward too far, but the moment we said to each other, we've really got to buy a house, is when we looked at our rent and it was much higher than what a mortgage repayment would be. And that it's that kind of stuff. But if nothing changes and there's no pain, then you'll just keep doing what you're doing. And the problem is that by the time you feel that pain, you then need to go and save up all the money.
In terms of being a planner, do you, because you've been able to plan and build your corporate career, and Rhys is also, so you're double income parents in the household, and before the kids come along, so there wasn't sort of a lot of forward planning. The baby comes along, your firstborn. Did that sort of straighten you up a little bit, or was it sort of no? We were sort of planning a future that way anyway?
With the maternity leave, we did have to plan. So we made sure that we had savings for that, which was the wedding money.
Yeah. Because I've got a question here, and sort of I want to make sure it lands the right way. You went quite well through childhood and into adolescence and so forth, where you had a pretty great life. How much pressure do you put on yourself to deliver that same great life for your children now that you are, in a similar boat to what your parents were with two kids, and living in an international city that's quite expensive and has, affordability challenges? So how much pressure does that put on you and Rhys in terms of the decisions you make around your money?
Constant. The amount of books I have read around parenting and the amount of discussions and tears we have had over, are we parenting the right way? And, to the money question, having discussions with friends around how are you, are you giving your kids pocket money? Are you getting them to contribute because they're part of the family? Like, what does that look like? Because all I think about, and what I tell like our 9-year-old Brooklyn, is my job is not to control you, but it's to guide you so that you can be a decent adult and be kind, and then be self-sufficient and have the confidence that you need. That's it. So if that means that I have to, give you money a certain way, or teach you about things a certain way, or that you learn your own lessons, it becomes very challenging as a parent to be constantly questioning. And we can only make so many decisions a day before we get decision fatigue as to, is this the right way? And unfortunately, if you do the same thing with one child, it is different for the second. And if you do the same thing a different day, you will also get a different outcome with children. There is no linear relationships there. So it does. And I think a lot of the pressure too, I ended up with postnatal depression and ended up at, in Belmont, which is a really amazing mental health hospital here. It is like, they saved my life. I thought that my kids could do so much better with a better mum. I thought I don't deserve them and they would be happy without me. That's the amount of reading I did on, even pre-birth to prepare and do everything perfectly, it is enormous pressure. And yeah, so and from before they're born, there's a lot on you as a parent.
Kat, you're being incredibly brave here, right? So let's just lean into that. And obviously, for Ben and I, we've had a wonderful experience with you where we got to spend an extended period of time with you, which is why we've gotten very familiar very quickly in this conversation. But one of the overarching things that the observation for you is it feels like there's this overwhelming sense that that you're pushing and proving and striving because of a sense of, to Ben's point before about the pressure, it feels like that pressure is enormous for you. And I guess someone who has got to know you better, the message for you is you're okay. Like you're not broken. Okay. There is nothing to fix here. Like there is, our kids come through us, not to us. And so you don't have to be a perfect parent. And, I don't have to be a perfect parent. All we need to do is do the best with what we've got at the time. And I think, some of the pressure that you place on yourself to emulate what you received on your kids, what that ends up doing is just creating a cycle of fulfilling the very thing that you don't want, right? Is to go, well, maybe I'm not the right parent and maybe they'd be better off with someone else. But you've got a massive heart. You've got a very, very strong desire to help others. And so we saw that evidence when we were over in Indonesia. And I guess my invitation to you as someone is give yourself a break. You're okay, like because you know what I mean. Like you've read a lot of books and you've got a very clear vision on what you want, and there is a sense of you being really keen to get what you want. But I would say to you that there's an opportunity for you to sort of take the pressure off and enjoy the ride along the way, because you've got a great family. Your husband's amazing. You're both connected. You both want to do things for other people. And so all your kids really want is a bit of an overflow of that. And I guess that, it just feels like there's this holding on so tight for you. Whereas if you would just, loosen the shoulders and tighten the grip and just enjoy it along the way, mate, the pass mark's good for you. You're doing really well. And I realised it was getting a little heavy there, but it's there's take it from someone who knows, who constantly thought I was broken, constantly thought I needed to fix, constantly needed to strive. What if I read the next book and I did the next thing? There is a certain piece in going, hey, you know what? If I just actually take a little bit of pressure off, things actually work out pretty well for people who've got good hearts and good intentions for other people. So I just wanted to throw that into the mix because you're doing okay. Don't worry about that.
Kat, for the people who might be listening on around this Christmas New Year period, and for some people it's a challenging period for them as well. And you mentioned that you've had some time out to sort of get your thinking straight postnatal. What are some of the things that you learnt as part of that work and the help that you got during that time that you can pass on to maybe some of those people in our community who are doing it a little bit tougher during this summer period?
I think the biggest thing, and Rhys has gone through this as well, and he's been really vocal at his work around, being open about it, is just talk to someone, and you're not a burden on someone. And a lot of people, they feel good about being there for you and feel good about listening, and because they're probably then able to feel like they can share something with you as well. And I think in the olden days, everyone had a village and a tribe, and that's not really reality anymore.
In Australia.
In Australia, yes. Africa might be different. So I think that's the biggest thing is just to talk to someone. And you're not alone, and there are so many people in this world that really care and that want to be there for you. And because it is tough, and there's so much stuff going on at the moment in life, and there's Bryce, I'm not the only one, by the way. But there is also a lot of podcasts and books out there if you do want to learn a bit more. I think there is that element, like with cognitive behavioral therapy, there is work that can be done to kind of help. Even like there's one thing that Rhys and I do all the time is the stress level. So if you're running a 10 the whole time, you will eventually fall into depression. Or if you're not getting enough sleep, you'll eventually fall down. And it's just being conscious of that and going, hey, like, and I'll say to Rhys, I'm an 8 right now, or I'm a 9. And he'll be like, okay, that's all right. Okay, I got this. I'll look after the kids. You go have a shower or whatever it is. Or I'll say, Rhys, this Sunday, I really need a few hours out. So also being open with your partner or your family about it and having just that, even just putting a number on it really helps. That's probably, the biggest stuff.
Yeah, it's a nice little tip for the community in terms of how you judge where you're currently at with your partner and the levels that are going into that. I mean, yeah, we're humane beings. We're not androids, right? So we're built with emotion as well as intellect. And, in some cases we can, as Dr. Michael Gervais talked about in his book, right, the fear of other people's opinions and, fear of judgment can sometimes be a real limiting belief that sort of can anchor you to what Bryce was saying before about some of the things that we've all gone through in life. And as I said, when I got, my help in my early 20s, from my psychologist, it was really helpful to know. And, when you sort of say talk to someone, it was really just helpful to know that the feelings that you're feeling are actually common for other people to also feel, that you're not alone, to your point, and that you can put them into context and get an understanding of them, and then do the work that you need to do to make sure that you don't, fall down a pathway again that just basically is challenging for, you being the best version of yourself. So I think that's really helpful. I reckon we should pivot now. I think we can sort of bring the sort of positivity back into the conversation.
Yeah, agreed. So let's find out what it looks like for you. Because you are clearly driven to build a property portfolio. You build a wealth creation plan for you. What does money actually mean for you, Kat?
The ability to make decisions and freedom, and having 7 and 9-year-old boy, and we both work really long hours. We then also often bring the stress home. Is you don't want that to be their whole life growing up either, and we want to be able to see a future where we can go for walks on the beach every morning, or we can travel to those countries that are a bit further away. And say Brooklyn does want to become a professional soccer player, which is his goal next year, that's perfectly fine. I will fly and follow you and be your biggest supporter. So it's just the ability to decide for yourself what you want that future to look like. And I see that with mum and dad, like they've got their house and they're able to continue to live the life that they've had their whole entire, their whole working career, because they've been good with their money.
Yeah.
And so your story around money around the dinner table, and now you're as a child, and now you're trying to replicate that with your 2 boys. What are the conversations you're having around money? Because at the end of the day, there was no stress or pressure on the money story because your folks, your mum doing night shift, and that's a huge commitment, right? And big sacrifice in terms of her, people who do night shift, their health is not as great as people who get the sleep in the right time of the day and get the vitamin, D or whatever it is that they get. It's really important to sort of understand that. So what sort of conversations are you having with your boys now? They're starting to become aware that things require money and time to be associated with those. What are you discussing around money and the dinner table with your boys?
What I found out, Ben, is that the boys are probably a lot smarter than I am. And today's economy is more about, well, what will you do for me? and so when I say, can you please do the dishwasher? It's like, well, what do I get out of it? I did put an end to that, though, when I said, well, I'm not washing these clothes anymore. And they realized that mum's not mucking around. So it's a good question, because what we've been talking to them about is we are all in this family and we were all contributing, because they said, oh, you need to give us pocket money. And it's like, well, no, because you don't pay me for doing all the chores. I mean, to be honest, Rhys does more chores than I do. But yeah, and so it's around, okay, we're going to instill, we're all in this together. Like, you live under this house, we all will do it together and you'll contribute. And so they do the dishwasher now quite freely. And then we're kind of thinking, what do we do with those bigger ticket items? If it's, Brooklyn probably hates it, but I always talk about property and how it goes up in value over time. And whenever he wants to buy Pokemon cards, I'm like, well, if you're going to buy that, then you need to look after them. And then he's like, well, I can sell them on eBay. And so they're a lot more in tune with money than what I thought. And they ask a lot, and I've shown the real estate. So it's probably an ongoing discussion, Ben, as to how are we going to navigate this so they don't fall into that same trap of just money just keeps coming. Yeah,
I've got similar challenges at home, Kat, in terms of, the boys know that we've got a business, and I know we've got multiple properties now, and so they're thinking, great, and I'm trying to teach them the value of hard work and making, tough decisions and delayed gratification. So, yeah, they're not easy conversations when you're in a position where, they live in a nice house. All of those things are true, right? So, I mean, part of, and Bryce and I've, had yarns about this as well. It's like, but there's still work to be done. And to your point around, Jane and Andrea, in terms of doing the work that they're doing to, for the boys to live their best lives, and contribute, and also earn pocket money and so forth. It's a battle, because they're very, very fortunate. They won the lottery to be born in this country, and they're also in a position where, their current situation finds them in a position that they know that we don't have to worry about money, and that in itself is a challenge.
I think it's about friction as well. So we go to the shops a fair bit, and it's like, no, you're not having that. Do you want to put it on a Christmas list? And it's friction in general. So a lot of the time, the kids have this, a fortnight, or they get Robux, or, it's all technology minded these days. And then it's like, well, that's fine. But first of all, not giving you any money for like the online gaming. But if you want something that you need, that's okay. But if you want other things, then you can save up for it. But then it's like, okay, well, how? They don't get any pocket money. So it's that kind of, how do we get them to be okay with that tension of not getting something?
Then their grandparents drop a lazy 100 on them for their birthdays, and then another 100 at Christmas, and you're like, all right, well, okay, you got a bank account, so, but yes, no, it's not easy. The
explanation I've heard, Kat, is you've got some baseline jobs that the kids do, and they don't get paid for it. That's just that's the price of admission to be living in this house. You've got to do that, the dishes, the bins, all that sort of stuff. And then you have gigs, right? So then you give them gigs. But here's what you can do if you want to earn some money. Rake the leaves, all the the bin has to go out every night. The dishwasher has to be stacked every night. The dishwasher has to be unpacked every morning. So that's the stuff. That's the price of admission for you to live in this house. But there are ways for you to make money if you do these other things. That's going to actually help you. And am I perfect on that? No. Have we implemented that system? Yes. There's definitely parts of it where they know. And the other word that we use in our family is priorities, right? So like Ben, our kids understand the resourcefulness that we find ourselves in. And it's just like, we have the money, but it's not our priority. We are choosing to make priorities for here and here. And I explain to them, and the kids have the conversations around money and the properties and what we're doing. And then Jack wants me to buy a boat to go fishing. And so he makes statements like, well, why don't you just sell one of the properties? Or you can do it. And I say, well, priorities, mate. That's not where we're looking to prioritize our money right now. And at some point in time, I would love to buy a fishing boat with you and do that with you, because we live in a place that's got wonderful seafood, right? But That's not the priority right now. And so I navigate that conversation around baseline. Here's some ways for you to earn some money, and then here's where our money's being prioritized right now. And it's real. Like, the navigation is real for you. And I guess again, you know, you're doing a great job. These kids are lucky to have parents like you. But the best advice I ever got is the kids come through us, not to us. They're not ours. They're just here to have their own journey, and we're just here to support them on those first few years. But so money means freedom and the ability to make decisions for you. Tell us what it took, because I know that there's your first experience in the property game had the dreaded S word about it. Can you talk to us about the dreaded S word experience that you had, Kat?
It wasn't as bad because I had listened to a lot of the podcast. So what you were talking about earlier, in that you do provide a lot of information, and I think there's a lot of podcasts out there now that do that and provide information so that you don't get completely burnt. But then it gets to that point where you're like, okay, so then what? So we purchased the PPR and thought, okay, well, let's look at this property investment. And I think that what triggered it for us, because we don't really have much savings, was there was an episode you did on, how to not impact the family budget, which was quite good for us. And so from there, I was ringing buyers agents and asking them, and kind of thinking, okay, what do you do? How long have you been doing it for? And then had decided on a buyer's agent. I thought, yep, I'm going to go with this person. And then I rang. I mean, some things are probably best left unsaid. But anyway, I rang the other guy to say, sorry, I haven't chosen you. And then ended up choosing him.
Wow.
That's persuasion.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Persuasion in its finest.
Yeah, please. Now unpack that for us. So,
No,
it's important, because this is what people are going. What techniques did they use to convince you to actually go with them?
And this is the where the plane lands, Bryce. in that, if you know what values you have, probably good to keep an eye on that when you look at someone that you're going to potentially work with. So I think the reason that I changed my mind was because he was so nice about it.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
He was so open and
I'm
nice.
not going to use you, and this person went, guy or a girl?
It was a guy.
So this guy says, oh, okay, that makes sense, totally understandable. And you
I
thought,
appreciate the call.
Yeah.
It was
Yep.
really nice of
And
you
then
to call me.
so did you rescue?
So can I?
Kicked in? What
Let's
happened?
role play it, Bryce. Let's role play it. So you ring me and say, okay, and see how I go.
I would never ring you because you're a kind of people. So this is going to work.
So it goes along the lines of, I appreciate you for calling me. I mean, it's a really nice thing to do. Just before you go, can I ask what about them that they offer that got them, they go, because I want to learn about, where I can improve. And so that sort of, that just, de-escalates it. It's in a general conversation. So, and, oh, really, they do. Did you know we do that as well. Do you know, I have experience in that area as well, but I appreciate what you're doing there. And and then how do they turn it around?
Mate, you're wasted here, mate. You should be acting. Like, you should be on stage somewhere. But a good point, Kat. How did they turn it around?
I don't even think they needed to do anything. I think I just turned myself around. It was the way they handled it. And I think when you prepare yourself for those difficult conversations and then you expect it to be so easy, it's like you want to give them something in return.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you find this, but if you're calling up real estate agents to try and find the right person to manage your property, it's the same thing. So if you're calling them up and, you're just trying to find information, it's like you want to give them the role because they've been so good about it and they've taken the time out of their day and so forth. And that's what it was. And he was just talking normally, this blah, 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 knowing the area. And yeah, maybe Bennett was a bit of that. And so I was like, oh, you know what? Let's do it. And yes, so
All right.
So you say let's do it, and then what happens next?
I wasn't quite sure what to expect. When you talk about buyer's agent, you have a bit of an idea. And in the back of my head, I thought, okay, I've listened to this number of podcasts, so I know it should be, land to asset ratio and so forth. So you've got the fundamentals down, which is great. But then when the form came through, I think it's whatever the form is that they get you to sign, and we weren't sure. And then the money was reasonable, a little bit cheaper, I guess, than some of the others. So maybe that was potentially a red flag. They were affiliated with a real estate agent, so that connection there, a potential conflict of interest. Yeah. Yep. And it's not, we didn't receive, and because we had done a property management plan, we were like, okay, it has to be, 6% capital growth, 4% rental income. Like, we're quite clear on the ask, and that it had to be like, we're preferring these kind of suburbs just based on that, like where our PPR was and what I had kind of looked at with, the numbers, and we're ideally looking for a house. And so we had started the process texting through, a lot of the properties were on realestate.com, so they weren't really off market. And then some of the information sent through was just the extract from RP data. So it was just they put their logo on it. It wasn't a proper tailored anything. There was there was a conversation around what were we after. But it was very focused. The majority of the time was spent on looking for the properties as opposed to probably the prep work. And when you see a good buyer's agent prep work, that really opens your eyes. So I think one big thing is seeing what like a good buyer's agent can give you and what you should expect and why those suburbs are applicable and why these types of properties are applicable and so forth, and how that ties into your property plan is probably key. And then the other thing is when I mentioned, this was probably a big red flag, but it was probably too late, is when I said, oh, maybe we should just go townhouses, because we were really pushing to get a house with that price. And he was so excited. And I thought, hang on a second, there is something not right here. And then he'd mentioned like he had purchased a townhouse, and I thought, no, this can't be right.
It wasn't a buyer's agent; it was a project marketer,
It was
right?
a buyer's agent.
But they were selling brand new stock.
No, not new stock.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Now, did you go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. And how did that go?
So purchased a house, a standalone house, which was good, 3-bed, 1 bath, which was good. Did the building and pest, when we went and had a look at it, the building and pest had already been done. So he said, well, that's great. The seller has already done it. You don't need to do it. So this was a big mistake from our behalf, in that it had no issues or anything like that. It was great. But then we realized that it was a hoarder's house, and we had a whole stack of cockroach infestation. But when they did the building and pest, that was for termite only. And the fence needed to be completely repaired, which had also not really been articulated. Yeah, it wasn't really highlighted to us. Reading those reports, I think what was great about, the most recent buyer's agent we had, in that he went through, he had a good experience on reading those reports and was able to, speak to us in layman's terms and also say, do you want to call the builder who did the inspection and ask any questions yourself, and just having that, that comfort there. That was really big. So get your own building and pest.
Yeah, and I think it is quite sensible to talk to the building and pest inspector. I would certainly be encouraging that in a lot of respects, because at the end of the day, it's their report. It's what they stand up by. But it's okay to review it with your buyer's agent. I think that's also really helpful. But I also want to be able to talk to the creator of the report, to get a sense of what they see in the property and understand what I might be up for in the future, especially if you're buying these older type of properties. they will have maintenance. They will have challenges in terms of costs. Hopefully, not straight away, but in some cases they do. Bang, this goes wrong, that goes wrong, and you're up for some unexpected initial costs that you weren't planning for. But yeah, property investing is it's still running a small business, and sometimes there are going to be some costs. So I think that's some good advice to wanting to know from you just said, Kat, resources they had behind them, the experience they had, the research they were doing, the team that they built around them in terms of who was, doing all of the professional skilled work as part of that. Sounds like the second experience was better than the first.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of the time, and I find this at work as well, is a lot of the time people just want to know, what does good look like? Because if you don't know that, what's your baseline? So if you don't know what you don't know, it's so difficult.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with a good buyer's agent, we were going through, obviously, Anthony, who was amazing, and he would say, this house is on concrete, whatever it is in Melbourne, whatever they do with the timber ones, so they'll need to be repaired roughly,
Okay.
and he could just go, drainage issue here, that's an issue, that's good. Like when you have a buyer's agent that has done it for so long and knows that area intimately, you're saving money on building and pests anyway, because they're calling out the issues and they said, let's not look at that because you're going to need to lift that, or there's rising damp or whatever it may be. So yeah, you get that comfort too, I think, once you find the right person.
Yeah.
So you've had the plan built. You've how many properties do you need to complete for that to be fulfilled?
Good question, Bryce. Well, these guys on this property podcast think, that we should just save money. I'd like one. No, I'd like two. Rhys would like one. More, as many as possible. And you do, sorry.
Or the living in Bali thing and getting that income whilst you're there. How's that fitting?
Well, I guess the context for why we said you should save is because the question that you asked us is that you trouble saving. The buffer was the challenge. You don't have a problem with the big picture stuff.
No,
it's the detail in the meantime. So because that can lead to redlining. And when you're redlining, that can lead to emotional stress levels, which then has the flow-on effect to what we talked about at the beginning of the conversation. So the idea was, let's build some habits and some, we talked about stacking the pain, and also the language of the wealthy is they put their money into assets so that it creates income so they can pay their expenses. Where the language of the middle class is money in, money out before we're building the asset. So it was more around those conversations for you guys. So there's no limits. I mean, you're very ambitious. So if you want to go and buy 4 more properties, fine. But let's at least have a baseline that says you only need to have a couple. Let's get some of these baseline things organised for you so that you can have some peace around that and invest in your energy elsewhere. And then at some point in the future, like a lot of people invest and pivot later. Some people invest passively, get confidence, and then pivot to active. Some people get confidence and go, well, I think I want to bring my retirement forward, or I want to. So it's more about just having those stage steps so that you can actually have those choices along the way.
Yeah, and if you're going to be travelling to watch your son play professional soccer or football, that also takes a little bit of money as well. So, to the point of building up a bit more of a buffer, when you've got a few little life choices that are coming up, obviously, before we hit record. And for our audience listeners, obviously, we spent 7 days together or thereabouts. So we've got a relationship in terms of for Kat and Rhys. So we can sort of speak. The conversation doesn't feel like we're interviewing someone we've never met for the first time in our life. So yeah, until you know what those stories look like, the best thing you can do is hold liquidity and in your offset until we have some clarity around what that particular story looks like. Because off the back of that, you will be able to have choice and freedoms. But if we hook you into another property, and then all of a sudden you want those choice and freedoms, we're hooking you off that property, decoupling you from it, and it's going to be an expensive exit. So property needs time to breathe. So that's obviously the little side message that Kat and I have in terms of this conversation.
When you first buy your PPR as well, you think, yeah, you're going to pull out money to do some renovations or whatever. And I thought there's no point in separating the loans because this is our property we're going to live in. But the reality is, to your point, that things change and it does reduce your choice if you are locked in and highly leveraged. And one thing I wish I did was keep that separate and not, put it all in now, because now if we wanted to turn this into an investment, it would be cash flow positive. So yeah, it does have challenges. And you're thinking at this point in time, this is my family home or my dream home, it changes.
Yeah, that's the offset benefit that we've talked about plenty of times on the pod. Yep.
Okay, my final question for you today is, what do you think is the best lesson that your experience shares with our community? You put your hand up to come on here. You've been listening for a long time. You know that the gold for our community comes in the little nuances along the way. But what do you think? What do you think the major lesson is from your portfolio build and everything that you've experienced and talked about us today? What do you think is the biggest takeaway for our community?
I had a quote here because I thought you might want one. If you're waiting to feel ready, you wait forever. We didn't move because we were confident. We moved because staying stuck scared us more. So that's my quote in that, again, with the tension. So I think the theme of the day is the tension and what we talked about in Bali, and that, yeah, you've just got to do it. And as a parent, you're always trying to find the right time or, have enough money. But if you really want it, you can make it happen.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to finish in terms of it's a really beautiful message to people to say that when you have kids, there's never a perfect time for certain things. You have dedicated yourself to Bryce's point of guiding these young people into the world, and there will never be a perfect time for anything. You've just got to prioritise, to Bryce's point, and make that time. And so I really love what you've just left us with there, Kat. And also thank you very much for being that beautiful, authentic person that we know so well, that we've, cuddled and hugged and laughed and joked about and had plenty of time together in Bali. We really appreciate it in terms of what you and Rhys bring to the table. And, you're a credit to yourself and to your family and, obviously to your parents and all of the values that you bring to the table. Bryce talked about it before in terms of that incredible heart that you have and making sure that everyone feels involved and together. That was really on display when we travelled with you. So thank you again for coming on the pod again. And, we love everything you do and, onwards and upwards.
And you're not broken.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And what you guys are doing for us. And you've changed our lives as well. So it's the least we can do.
Good one. You've been changing lives overseas as well, which is good. So, Kat, we appreciate that. And there's a lot there, Ben, for our audience to absorb and soak up. But, very brave and well done for joining us here, Kat.
Thank you.
There you go, Ben. Very, very raw, very, very transparent, and I think very courageous of Kat to come and talk about some of those topics which were sometimes not easy to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's an important context here because obviously when you have spent a fair bit of time with someone on buses for hours and you're having deeper conversations and you're building deeper relationships with people and you can start to, go the different layers of the onion, so to speak. We were really fortunate that Kat was able to open up because we probed a bit in this particular conversation compared to other conversations that we would do because we've got a deeper relationship. And there's a connection there and she knows how we were probing was coming from a place of goodness and respect in terms of that. And she was very vulnerable, very authentic in terms of how she opened up around their story. And I want, that's the message that I want the community to understand, that when you go through life, you've obviously got your life partner, but there's also some other mentors or people that you can spend some time with that you consider part of your close relationship group. And you can talk to them about being generally okay. You can talk to them about mindset or whatever that is. And in some cases, you can talk to them around your financials. And that's really what a true trusted advisor should be, right? They should be someone who you can, get a high five off for doing really great things, but you should also be able to eyeball them around some of the decisions that are being made and understand, the emotional context behind some of those decisions. Because once you get to that layer and once you understand what's in behind those, hopefully we can get to, giving some techniques or some ways in which we can improve. And that's going to obviously then, not put, take the pressure off you by keeping up with the Joneses and appearances in terms of and just living your life and feeling comfortable in your own skin. So I just wanted to say to Kat that, I've had long conversations with her about this, and I think she's very brave in terms of what she's doing here, and to share that with the community and to move on from the areas that she was in to now feel the confidence and security. And now she's got ambition around what she wants to do in terms of contribution and what her future may look like. And I think, that's part of spending time with like-minded people and then basically pushing the boundaries of human opportunity as well. So, Kat, to you, thank you again for coming on the episode.
Yeah, well said, Ben. I think one of the takeaways that I got from her, and it was a real reflection point for me, is when she went through that, well, she there wasn't that tension around money when she was growing up, and then what that actually had the flow-on effect for her as an adult, and that made me reflect a fair bit around my own upbringing. There was a lot of tension. I did come in. I was in a middle class family. I sort of think probably on the sort of the more modest end of middle class, Ben, and so that tension really existed. But then I think about that with my own kids as well, and I think there's a lesson there for everyone. To know that when you do break that tension on your kids, what that actually looks like a little bit later in life. So I think it was raw, transparent. I think a lot of people could relate to Kat. And I think it's important. There was two things. Kat's not broken. But a lot of people could probably find a bit of themselves in that story as well, where we just keep on thinking that we are broken and we've got to try and fill the cup with stuff. So thank you, Kat. We appreciate you in many, many ways. You've been a strong supporter of the Property Couch over many years. You and your husband, Rhys, joined us in Bali and just showed that you've got a huge, massive heart there as well. So we look forward to continuing to do some life with you as well. But Ben, I guess
the penny dropped also. They are clients of ours. There was a lot of clarity when they didn't have clarity. And so that's obviously how we got to know them off the podcast. They came and did a property plan with us. And there's been some real comfort around doing that exercise. Because again, inside households, you can have debates about the right and the wrong thing to do and decisions around your priorities. And so having, that independent umpire that can help you through that process allows you to get clarity, make the invisible visible, try to work out what your big rocks in the jar are. And I think, again, that's a reflection in terms of the exercise that they've gone through and now feeling in the comfortable position that they're in has been a product of their work using a trusted guide. And Bryce and I have been very privileged to be that trusted guide from the podcast point of view in terms of that generally for the community. But then when you do get that one-to-one relationship with your specialists and your professional advisors, part of your professional team, that only enriches that experience and you can get clarity around the things that are important to you and you can go after them. And so I just wanted to make sure that we mention that before we get into a couple of housekeeping things.
Well said. Well done, Kat. We appreciate you. I think the community does too, Ben. But as we head for home, you've got a couple of things you want to share?
Yeah, like the world doesn't end, Bryce, as we're talking about, right? Even though it's a week before Christmas or thereabouts, we've got plenty of things that we need to think about and talk about. We've released some new features also on the Moorr platform, so I just wanted to highlight those. The most interesting one for our property investor community, we've got now almost sort of 19,000 property investors on the platform. Acquisition costs. So things like your government and statutory costs, you can now load them in, your professional and advisory costs. So this is all part of the acquisition or capital cost to work out any future capital gain, inspections and reports, and any of your finance and borrowing costs. So we've got a really neat area where you can unpack all of that information and store that in a digital record that's going to be available for you in the future, and also for your tax accountant at some point in time in the future where you're going to be able to get that. So check that out. It's just been released. It's now, those acquisition costs are now available to be stored as part of your bookkeeping when you're managing investment properties. But a lot of people also should keep them for their owner-occupied home if they're on the property ladder journey, right? In other words, if this is not their forever home and you want to turn it into an investment property, this is best practice record keeping. So make sure you also you do that as well. So just wanted to, it's one of these we release every fortnight in terms of upgrades to the platform. And so this one's just snuck in there. So I thought it's an important time to be remembering that. And I remind everyone about the challenge that I mentioned last week, and that is work out what you spent last year using the new free transactions area on Moorr, and then set up for successful 2026. So if you want to learn more about that, you can head to the Moorr website, which will have all of those great details on it as well.
Well said. There you go, folks. Big episode. And Ben, just a little reminder to our community that we actually are releasing an episode on Christmas Day, because Christmas Day falls on Thursday this year. And it is a ripper too. An excellent conversation. But Ben, until next week on Christmas Day, if you've got time in your earbuds to listen to the story, otherwise see you on Boxing Day, mate. Until next week.
Ho, ho, ho. And remember, knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it.
Oh, I like your sound of voice. See you next week, folks.